brings us to a fantastic panel that I'm really excited about. And I see Ivo smiling big there. I imagine it's about the topic. So this is crafting new realities, world building with generative AI. I've called this year, more than once, I've called it the year of AI, by which I mean consumer AI, or it's got our attention in a new way. And Ivo, I'm going to hand straight over to you. Please, quick introductions to Timothy and David, and I'm sitting back and enjoying this one. Thank you, guys.
Perfect. I guess I'll go first. So
excellent. Daniel and Ben and everyone, so much. All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And I'm pleased to welcome two amazing panelists to this conversation on creating new realities. I hope we're hearing everyone together today. My name is Ivo Heyning. I'm coming to you from Reality Craft, which is a design lab for concept development, including all of these workflows and tools that we're going to discuss today. So with me today, we have two amazing folks, Timothy Porter and David Romero. I'm going to let both of them tell you a little bit about their work, and then we're going to dive into a conversation on all of these wonderful machine learning tools and how they fit into your work. So Timothy, if you could start us off, Tim, that would be great.
Not a problem. So I'm Tim Porter, CTO at ModTech Labs, about 20 years of experience in the entertainment industry. In video games, I was a technical artist. In movies, I was a pipeline technical director. And what my company does is transmedia creation for the entertainment industry, which means that we take in photos, videos, 3D scans, we optimize them, we clean them up, and we get them ready to where they'll be on a screen one day, as in like Mandalorian style virtual production, all the way to maybe the next day or hours later on a cell phone mobile construction. So we use a lot of machine learning to not only do the optimization, but also to speed up process and to assist our artists in being able to go ahead and create the most amazing and beautiful and highest quality production. I am also the AI chair and XR vice chair for CTA, which is Consumer Technology Association. They run CES.
And Tim has been just an amazing colleague. We got to meet originally through a technology conference in Las Vegas, and I want to give you just a sense of the amazing data mind this man has. Their company has really been crunching every aspect of XR data for a number of years. And if you haven't heard of ModTech Labs, you should definitely check them out. They're an amazing team of great partners. Now, David Romero, it is such a pleasure to be here on this conversation with you. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're working on with Vibrant Nebula and all of your experimentation?
Yeah, hi, my name is David Romero. I've been doing immersive work for about 8 years. I come to this initially through the planetarium and large dome world, and that's like a really prohibitively expensive world. So when I got the opportunity to try the HTC Vive in like 2015, it was like a real shift for me in access levels. And I went on to be a huge fanboy and work for HTC in content and developer relations for the last 5 years. I've recently wrapped that up, and I've been spending all summer playing around with neural radiance field tools primarily. I've been doing photogrammetry for about 7 or 8 years, and honestly, I was pretty bored with it. But neural radiance fields have unlocked like a whole new, level of creative ability for me at a fraction of the cost and at a fraction of like the hardware required. So it's really just been a huge, topic of interest for me.
It's a fascinating space, and I'm not sure everyone here has a strong handle on what a neural radiance field or a NERF, as you might have heard. Tim, could you give us a bit of a walkthrough on what is a NERF and how are they used?
Sure. So a NERF is a pre-trained machine learning algorithm. And to give you an idea, this technology has been around for about 3 years. But most people are starting to become really interested in it after Instant NGP came out from NVIDIA at the beginning of this year, about March. The really amazing thing is it uses a lot of the same technology and concepts of photogrammetry at a much smaller scale. So just like David talked about, you need way less horsepower, you need way less photos, you need way less, pretty much everything across the board. The really awesome thing is that you get the ability to be able to scan things like shine, sheen, reflective, refractive, in a much higher quality and detail. You can do things like glass, shiny ceramic objects, and you can also get thin objects. This is super, super important. So you can do things like blades of grass and really not have a problem. It comes out really amazingly. So Instant NGP is a good place to start. If you're somebody who really wants even more help, there are a couple other ones that have come out in the world of Nerf Studio, which actually showcases and shows you how to do all of this work. And there's actually an Instant NGP plugin that's built into there. So it's much more hands-on, and it takes care of all the problems for you. If you're like, I don't know how to do anything, it does all of it for you.
Nerf testing and experimentation is so fascinating. And if you want to try this at home, Instant NGP is one of the ones that was mentioned. But try it with something like this, where you've got a mix of iridescence or shininess, right? So this is a glass object from about 100 years ago. It is extremely difficult to scan these using traditional sort of photogrammetry. If I were to put this in a scanner, it's going to give you lots of loss, basically. Holes. It's not going to be able to read everything. So if you're trying to think about experimentation on creating 3D assets, for example, a Nerf can be the way that you get there. And there's lots of other ways these Nerfs can also be used in storytelling or in world building as well. So David, how are you exploring Nerfs today? Oh, David, we've lost your sound again.
The easiest way to visualize this would be to go to my Twitter page, because all of this is highly visual. But I've spent the last summer basically throwing every single thing I could at these Nerf engines and a few others that haven't been mentioned. And so basically, I would really, really recommend just trying it. When you learn how to Nerf, you have to make shifts in your brain to understand kind of the data that you need to feed the engine for it to actually do what's called view synthesis and figure out what things look like between your data points. And so it's something that you kind of have to learn by experience. Recently, I've been using the Luma app, which is currently in beta, that's rolling out. And the lovely part about that is that has augmented reality features that allow you to either visualize the guide path that you need to take to get the optimal capture, or it allows you to visualize the photos that you take in real time and the data samples that you're taking. That way you can kind of see where your data gaps are. But in the last 6 months, there's been a tremendous increase in the accessibility from where, the tools that are mentioned, NGP and Nerf Studio, those still require a powerful video card, dedicated desktop. Now you can do all of this with your cell phone using cloud rendering and stuff. So we're seeing the marginal cost from this drop off a cliff. And anytime you see the marginal cost for something drop off a cliff and creators get empowered, you're going to see the ability to make all sorts of new, crazy, cool stuff. But, the great thing about this is, since a lot of it's based in neural rendering, since a lot of it's based in AI and stuff, you're going to be able to plug this into so many other things. For us, the Nerf, what we think about as the pretty pictures, that's just collapsing that math down to a 2D photo that you and I can understand. But to the computers, this is pure data, and it's going to be able to mix and match this and do all sorts of really crazy stuff. And a lot of this is going to translate directly into WebXR content.
Absolutely. And we're just starting to see this with tools. Some of you have been following Get3D from NVIDIA, or some of the other early 3D asset generative tools. So if you're thinking about something like Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, for example, many people, hundreds of thousands of people, have gotten very into creating the 2D asset. Creating 3D assets, obviously, there is not as much learning model data, right? At the end of the day, we have to be able to train models based on millions of 3D object images. So some of this work that is happening iteratively within this community is feeding better process. And some of it, hopefully, is feeding better world building, feeding better workflows, and hopefully giving us a better sense of connectedness and realism when we're creating, and recognizing the artistry, not just of the virtual space, but also recognizing how we can bring these things together for more interesting or cohesive experiences of all types. I'm very interested, Tim, in how you are exploring these in workflows, and especially for the WebXR producer, but for anyone who's creating here. What does that look like in your work today, and where are you going?
Sure. So we do a lot of texture asset exchange, mostly using GAN. So being able to take like a diffuse texture and then turn it into an albedo using machine learning algorithm, or even taking that albedo and then making a normal map. And we use a lot of GANs that are in that. We're doing a lot of exploration right now with Stable Diffusion, and being able to go ahead and not only train that faster, but actually use that at a lower RAM, VRAM cost. And so this is something that a lot of people are going to recognize as we get deeper and deeper and deeper into the world of machine learning, is that the cost can be cheaper, but then it can also be exponentially much more expensive, especially on the training side, because you have to feed in these 3D models, which means you need big GPUs, and big GPUs cost a lot of money, and not just in the purchasing aspect, but also electrical. So, a typical system that we have has 4 Tesla GPUs and 2 CPUs and lots of RAM, and each one of them can pull 1,500 watts. That's your typical house power per server, and that's running 24/7. But if you're looking at workflows and how we utilize it, it ends up saving the artist a lot of time. And when we use things like Stable Diffusion for image generation, it gives a really good starting point of, hey, here's a great idea. Let's go ahead and run with that idea. This is our type. And then you can also do really cool things like, you can take your entire movie and you go, hey, this is our theme. This is based off of our storyboards. What if we take these photos and we do it in the style of, and all of our storyboards? And and you can throw that in. You can start making changes. And you're like, actually, let's go ahead and take back some of the reds and let's do that. And then you can train that again. And when you can do things like texture inversion with Stable Diffusion, you take 3 photos and then in 10 hours, boom, you can actually have that style that's been updated and trained, and you can throw that in very quickly and then continue moving that forward. So, there's a myriad of different ways.
As a world builder, that's exciting, because you just described a process that in Hollywood would have taken a year or more, sometimes, of pre-development. Oh, yeah. And you're basically creating and collapsing those iterations into something that can be done in days in a concept lab like what we have here, a place where people can just figure it out almost in real time, right? We're talking about turnarounds in days instead of weeks or months. David, I'm curious how these sort of, driving the cost down of running your own server farm at home or in the cloud, combined with the new tooling, what is that enabling? And how do you see that empowering some of the other creators and WebXR builders here as well?
Yeah, so it's really early days because we don't have great export options right now. Luma AI is the only thing I know of right now that has the WebGL interface that allows somebody to just go and play with it in a web browser. But for the most part, I'm not really concerned right now about capturing data for the current tools, because any data I captured now is just going to be able to keep being churned in the machine learning AI blender, and I can keep reapproaching it for years and years to come. So my focus right now is really exploring how to capture the best data set right now. That way I can create my own little library of training data, my own little library of stock footage, just my own little library of test kits, because every time a tool comes out, I don't want to have to go and take 100 photos and stuff. And it's just about kind of building workflows and getting used to the idea that this is going to be the way I'm at least going to focus on creating digital worlds in the next few years, because the level of detail that I can get out of this is surpassing photorealism to an extent. It's better than what I'm just seeing out of video, cell phone video, to the point where I've kind of given up with some of the NVIDIA stuff, because I can't communicate to people that it's synthetic and that it's a reprojection. It just looks real. And until there's more creator tools to kind of allow you to do cool things with the output and stuff, my focus is just getting the training data, and anybody can start. And this is kind of a four-dimensional thing. Right now it's autumn. There's going to be leaves falling and stuff. In 2 months you're not going to have the ability to go capture a bunch of cool data. So I'd recommend, doesn't matter which tool, there's a couple of entry points now. Just start playing with it and forming your workflows, because this is probably going to be big.
I'm excited for the jump that is happening as many of us go from being prompt engineers to more systems engineers, and rethinking all of these systems and how they come together with obviously some tools that are already out there like Blender. And I would love to hear what you feel is currently missing. I looked at a tool yesterday, for example, that would do the 3D asset sort of sharing and export off of the NERF to a 3D asset. And I know that there are other tools out there, maybe some of you are working on, but what do you feel like is missing in terms of creator tooling? Where do we need to go in the next year?
Sure. I mean, I'll pick this up because, my background was building tools for artists. That was where I started my entire career. And that's a sweet spot that I have, and a heartfelt place that I enjoy. I always told people that when you make tools for artists, they may not turn around something faster, but they'll turn around something that is mind-blowing, something that you never expected would be possible. And the only way that you can increase not only just realism, quality of life, but then as well, the quality of everything that everyone enjoys as far as artistic output, television, movies, even something just so simple as billboards, is affected by creator tools. And so I think the big thing that we're missing as an industry in general is creator focused tools. Many of our tools and the user interfaces and user experiences are designed around what developers have and what their concept is. So whenever I sit down and we generate tools and we make user experiences, we do as much as we can on user testing to make sure that it sits down in front of a bunch of artists. I want artists to be able to use the tool and go, wow, I never thought I could do X. Wow, I'm so enabled to be able to do this thing. It is entirely about empowerment and enjoyment. I hate it when I hear artists go, yeah, now I've got to do this 900 times. That should be a tool. There's absolutely no reason why we don't work at this as like a servant leadership kind of concept where tools programmers like me sit down and go, hey, what makes your life suck? How do we make it better? What do we do to make that happen? And I think that's really important. I think that is what's missing most of all from the entire world of asset generation and creation and tools generation just in general.
David, would you like to add to that?
No, that's perfectly well said. I think it's just a technical problem. They're going to figure out the connectors. They're going to figure out the common formats. The more people who do this now, the more likely we are to have open standards. So, I think having a lot of creators in this conversation at this exact moment is really important, because we might end up with good open standards. But yeah, I think, a lot of these problems are solved in the R&D, and we're going to see in the next year or two those transition into productized platforms, and it's going to happen fast. And really it's a conversation of user education and ethics past a certain point.
There are so many hidden conversations that need to be unearthed in terms of how we do this work wisely and well with people. How do we do this work ethically in a way that honors creators all the way throughout the ecosystem? I'm curious how you've been thinking about best practices and standards. I know that Neil Trevitt earlier from Metaverse Standards Forum is looking to build a working group, for example, to work on creators and tooling related issues. How are you addressing this today, and what are the sort of questions that you feel are essential to bring up that maybe aren't being heard frequently? Anyone who wants to
go first, you go, David.
Good.
I've been going first.
So I mean, I've been treading lightly with my data capture. I've been not really posting nerfs of people and stuff because there are inherent risks and stuff to that. I've been just trying to focus on capturing clean data sets because I don't know where this will end up and under what terms and conditions and stuff. But, a lot of my personal work that I don't post online is, friends, family, moments and stuff. And I'm going to have to figure out how how in the future to better work within those workflows. But for now, I just focus on consent. I ask very strongly for consent if I do any sort of neural imaging on a person. And I tend to not really share it unless they are aware of what's going on. And, I think it's going to be interesting to look to the platforms because everybody's going to have their own take on how much they're going to allow, because there's a lot of knobs and dials in the back end that you can use with this. And I think it's good to kind of form your own personal ethics because, you want to protect your friends and family and stuff and be clean about how you introduce people to this technology, probably.
On the flip side, something that people always fear, and this has been the fear for absolutely ever, is that the more tools that we have, the less we need X, Y, and Z style of person, and that traditionally has happened in small bursts. We don't need iron workers as much as we did before because we have automated that process. But people adapt, people learn, and people get trained. And I see this as a future where we actually have artists that are doing art. There's no reason why we have to have an artist that sits down and makes a normal map. I'm sorry, that is one of the most absolutely boring things. Or a remesh. Oh dear God, let's work through and retopologize this mesh. I'd rather blow my God. Like, it's horrible. It's a horrible job. Who wants that? Nobody wants that job. So if we can have an algorithm that takes that and moves that on, and then the big thing is every single studio now is working together to make standards. Standards is super important. That means that people are more indispensable, not less indispensable. That means I can jump from a Sony to a Disney and continue on much more easily because we're keeping this standard of not just the file type, the optimization type. And then as we're going in towards transmedia, that makes it even more important. So that means that you have to have a much higher level of skill and you're going to be enabled by all these tools. So I really see this as kind of a burgeoning world of new capabilities, new thought processes, and the silos that were once, oh, that's the games team. We don't talk to the games team. Oh, no, that's the people who do all the 3D printing. They just do the show. It's all going to be a collaborative process. And as we learn from other people, we get better. You have no idea how much stuff I've learned from art and viz people that I've pulled in to movie production. Obviously, my work in games completely pushes all of this together. And it's all this like swirling of just thoughts and thought processes. And so I see it as a world where we do need to be careful. Agreed. Don't do things without people's consent. This is, don't give people tea 101. They don't want tea, don't give them tea. All the way across the board. And that is important that everyone understands what consent is when we take from people. And then as well, be smart about what intellectual property rights are, people. Don't try to steal other people's ideas. That's, just not being a jerk 101, so.
Yeah, we have to teach this in prompt craft and in prompt engineering because often the tools sort of default to this in the style of an artist's name. And I encourage people not to go that route, to create their own style. As a storyteller or as a museum or as any type of experience builder, your goal should be to create something that is unique to the experience you're trying to transmit, not copying someone else's art. And these are workflows that you can iterate and really begin to polish very, very quickly. So I jumped into Midjourney, I would say in June, made about 10,000 images over the summer. I tested a book out. This book I made from image to writing the book to publishing the book and having it in my hands in 2 weeks, right? So that's just Midjourney and Snapfish, right? That's 2D. When we're thinking about okay, the boom of potential WebXR worlds that could be generated, where do you see this going? And what are you excited about that might not have come up yet in terms of other types of tooling or other types of opportunities for everyone to be a creator of these new worlds?
I foresee a world of even passive content creation where devices might be doing this just on the cloud passively and stuff. there's just going to be a huge explosion of sensor-enabled devices, and this is just one current iteration of how we're processing the data, and that mathematical model will keep evolving and stuff. So really, there's no limit, I think, to how we'll be able to exploit this technology, and a lot of it is just about creating the pipes to get this to run in real time in WebX or WebGL and stuff. Right now, WebGL is just it's a few generations behind a dedicated native engine and stuff, but there's a lot of investment that's happening right now in WebXR. Meta has invested a lot to bring some much requested feature sets to that. So we're just seeing the phase right now where all of the formats, all of the standards are being created, and you kind of need to look through the current state. And you can use the tools right now as a way to introduce and explore yourself, but really, just kind of look beyond that and see what the standards are going to look like, because that will kind of dictate what creative potential you have in WebXR. For the most part, though, it sounds like you're going to be able to drive a lot of content creation with WebXR, content synthesis with WebXR, not just capturing moments, but synthesizing unique scenes using prompts and stuff. And that's something that we'll probably see in the very near future running on a product. So, I think the cat's super out of the bag, and right now you could just kind of do your best to either, try it yourself so you can kind of understand what type of data the algorithms are currently looking for, or at least follow some nerf creators to just kind of see where they're pushing the boundaries. And you're going to start seeing this crop up in all sorts of professional workflows here, because traditionally we have a lot of money invested in the traditional 3D model and like traditional workflows, things like normal maps and all of that stuff. And Timothy's company is kind of at the intersection of old and new. How do you generate those old assets using new technologies? But we're going to enter a phase where people will never need to learn what a normal map is, except in like the first 15 minutes of their visual graphics class, just talking about where we came from.
Tim, I'm glad
totally
you
agree.
came
So
back.
I think I followed the prompt. It was the old versus new, right? Is that where we're at? And
what are you excited about? And we have about 3 minutes left.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for, like David was saying, the old versus new. Once again, apologize about the internet, everyone. And so, right now, you're 100% right. Where my company is working is in this gap of, here is the future of technology. Let's pick up this future of technology and let's use it in what is currently there. Right now, render engines need polygons. You have to have squares and triangles, and that's just how it works. And so as technology moves forward, I foresee a world that can be entirely generated in front of you using lots and lots of data that's being fed. And there's no reason for us to go ahead and generate these, what are everyday kind of concept in worlds. And many of the jobs will end up moving towards tailoring those ideas, those looks, that final polish of what is amazing and interesting, very much, holodeck related. But we still got some time to get there. We're still, probably 20 years off before we have a true holodeck, this is what I need experience kind of setup. And hopefully they don't go all crazy and then, fall us out of the holodeck like happened on some of these Star Trek episodes.
Then again, I'm about to run up to another conference where I'm giving a talk on 4D and holographic production. So yes, it's coming. And for now, if you want to explore, try some of these nerf tools, try Instant MPP. The tools from Luma, the converters, and other things are out there. Try sound generation tools, because world building is obviously more about more than just the visual experience. Video and 3D assets are a part of world building, but you can explore all of the senses as these tools become more available. And if you're interested in the ethical and the consent-driven conversation that Tim was unpacking earlier, that's a conversation that we have at XR Guild. So I know some of you are participants in XR Guild, Alan, who was up earlier, and many others, Daniel and Ben. Thank you so much for all of your work, making sure that this community has spaces to have these conversations. So if you want to have the conversation about consent, ethics, and best practices, join us over at xrguild.org. And I'm Evo here at Reality Craft. Thank you. And Daniel, thank you for hosting with us today. David and Timothy, please reach out to these gentlemen if you're looking to explore some of the workflows that they're testing out, and let us know where we can support you in creating your labs.
Excellent. Ivo, thank you. And Romero, David Romero, that conversation, I have the best job, Ivo. You don't understand. Me hosting this, I get to listen to you guys. So I just wanted to say one thing, David, that I really appreciated. You're going really hard on consent. I'm really inspired by that. Asking people very explicitly, are you okay with this? And not getting lazy and making assumptions.
On the flip side, too, though, you might also have, like, I was doing photogrammetry. I was also able to go years back, too. So, like, raid your data mine yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, you probably have a bunch of cool nerfs and you don't even know it. So it goes both ways. Thanks, though.
Fantastic. I really appreciate that.